I'm Gab. He's Jules. I have no idea about the weather in London because I'm not in London. I'm in Monaco. I'm remote. I'm here for the Champions League draw. Jules, you're on holiday. You kindly took some time
Ah,
off to join us because this is big. The Champions League draw is coming up in a couple hours as we record this. We're in the last days of the transfer window. We'll get into all these transfers that are happening, some of the transfers that could happen. Um, but I want to start with something else today, Jules. I want to start with Barcelona because look, we've been going on for a long time about how tough it is, what a bad position they're in with that horrendous situation that they inherited from Bartomeu, a situation which I think a lot of people think Laporta made worse long term by pulling his levers.
yeah.
But on the pitch so far, 3 wins in three, most recently a 2-1 win away to Rayo. The kids that have been thrown in there have done the job. They had three 17-year-olds, I think, starting at the weekend. Dani Olmo looked fantastic on his debut. Some people had doubts over Hansi Flick, but he's getting it done. It's all good, right? At least on the
Yeah.
pitch.
Yeah.
And that's
So
with all
far,
the
so
injured
good,
guys
Gab.
still out.
Yeah, no. I mean, so far, so good. 3 games, 3 wins. Not always fully convincing, but clearly, per moments, you could see what they were trying to do. You could see that physically they're already on good form. You can see the intensity in possession, out of possession. We were waiting for Dani Olmo to finally make his debut, to finally being registered. They were able to do that thanks to or because of, I'm not sure which one to use, the Christensen injury and the duration of it. So that means that for now, certainly not for the whole season, but for now, Dani Olmo can play. And he did play really well when he came on for the last 30 minutes or so. Rayo, like you said, on Tuesday night with hitting the crossbar first and then scoring the winner. Lovely, lovely move. Left foot, first touch, left foot finish. And an angle as well after Lamine Yamal's pass. So really good. And yet, I think you could expect them to get better when players like De Jong or Gavi are coming back. Well, I know for sure, Gabi, I never want to see Ferran Torres again in this team, but I guess he won't play now that Dani Olmo can play, right? Please reassure me.
I think you'll need to see Ferran Torres. Simply, it's a numbers game, Jules. They don't have that many senior players. Obviously, with Vitor Roque, with that situation, somebody's going to have to play center forward when Lewandowski's out. Lewandowski's also had a good goal scoring start to the season. I thought he was a bit unlucky with having his goal disallowed last night. I mean, the correct decision because he did step on the guy's foot, but it was completely unintentional. So no, so I don't think you're out of the woods with Ferran Torres.
All right.
Um, but sorry,
I know I said I'm a bit disappointed, but I mean it's okay if he plays now and again. I just think that front four of Lewandowski, Olmo, Lamine, and Rafinha or Gavi when he comes back. If you have a midfield two of Pedri and De Jong, is perfectly fine for me. And then Ferran Torres can play, in the Copa del Rey against a third division team or something.
yeah, and obviously Araujo to come back as well. Thank you for the Ferran Torres. Look, I like Ferran Torres. I like his intensity. And I actually think his directness, at least philosophically, and his work rate fit what Hansi Flick wants to do. So I think we disagree a little bit there. I think he's going to be more a part of the rotation, although probably not as a starter. We're going to break down Barcelona further on the Gab Juls podcast and also talk about that sad injury for the youngster Marc Bernal, who's been doing so well. Looks like it's an ACL, and he's going to be out a long time. But I got to get your thoughts. I did not think when I saw James at the Copa America, I thought, okay, it's great, last hurrah. I'm not going to see this guy again unless he surfaces at the Club World Cup or something. But no, he's back in La Liga signing for Rayo. Come on,
Yes,
that's got to excite you.
yeah, of course it is. I mean, we saw Rayo against Barcelona on Tuesday night. They play good football. It's the ground. It's a small ground, but it's great. The atmosphere is great. And if they get the James of the Copa America, like you said, the deliveries on set pieces, everything they brought to Colombia, and this Rayo team is not as good as Colombia. Obviously, it's not the same. But if you get James in that kind of form, it's the right mentality, with him. He's very talented. It's just about mentality and how much he wants to be there. He wants to
I
work for the team and how much he wants to train, Gabi, because that was always a problem with him, training. But if he's there, of course, he's added value. He cost them nothing because he's almost playing there for free. So it's a great signing.
I don't think it's just about how hard he wants to work. I think it's about how hard he can't work. James Rodriguez, to me, is the example of the guy who is not a natural athlete. He does one thing exceptionally well, which is strike a ball. And there's value in that. There's value in set pieces. You do have to adjust your team around him. I'm just excited because we'll get to see highlights of James, and that's pretty special. Anyway, enough James Barca fans. We're going to go back and give you your thought about how the season has begun for Barca. All right, Jules, I want to start with the Bernal injury because, match day one, you see the lineup. I was wondering who they're going to play. And, man, it's two guys named Mark from La Masia, Bernal and Cancelo. Bernal has kept his place on the team. He was one of 3 17-year-olds that were starting together with Cubarsí and obviously Yamal. I'm wondering now in that area of the pitch, I mean, given how well he's done, I think Flick was saying, okay, he can be part of the rotation. I am wondering, in terms of numbers, do they need to revisit this a little bit going forward? Can you get by with, I mean, unless I'm forgetting somebody, and correct me if I am, I don't have the squad in front of me, but you're looking at De Jong, Pedri, Cancelo at this point.
Yeah.
Is there somebody I'm forgetting?
No. I mean, Christensen played there obviously last season, but now he's also injured himself,
But he's injured
so he
now as
can't
well.
even step up from the defense to go and help out. So you're right. It looks a bit light, and also Gavi can play there, but it's not the same profile as Bernal. Even De Jong to a certain extent is different, and you would think that Flick would use De Jong not as the holding, not as the 6, not as the deeper of the two central midfielders. So Romeo was left, and he was never good enough for this level. We said that many times last season. Not just even what he did in the Clásico, for example, but overall he was just not good enough. So could you go?
Eric Garcia?
Sorry?
Eric Garcia?
Yeah, I guess maybe. The less I see Eric Garcia, the better I am. So I don't know, but the problem is, Gab, you're right. He might have to be one of those solutions because they can't go out and spend 10, 15 million. So maybe get a loan, but at this stage of the transfer window, it's probably quite difficult. And that injury to Bernal at the last minute of the 10 minutes of added time in the Rayo game. So I don't know, even if the game had been a bit shorter, probably he would still be fit and with them. It's a real shame because he did well in preseason. Then he took his chance, and credit to him when Flick started him in La Liga. For someone so young, it was really impressive. So it's a real shame. And now you're right, for the weekend, you already wonder what kind of tinkering Flick will have to do to make that midfield performing.
Yeah, look, and it's funny because there's a cohort of Barcelona fans who think that, we hate the club when we point out their difficulties and the issues Laporta's had. And like I said, I think Laporta has made the situation worse. I think if Laporta had just said, look, we're in a terrible situation financially. This is what I inherited from Bartomeu. We're going to belt tighten and go with kids for a couple seasons. We're not going to go and spend. Instead, obviously, he decided to go pull the levers, commit a lot of money to the signings that we know about that sort of came and went. Even the free agents, even Marcos Alonso, people like that. Obviously, Lewandowski, the big one, Rafinha, Ferran Torres, all these guys. Right? He said, "Oh, this is necessary." I don't think it was necessary. I think you could have been more judicious, and then you might not be in as bad a situation right now. You might not have won La Liga either, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
But you'd be in a better position vis-a-vis the future. Given it's La Masia, I always feel like somebody can pop out. You're right, though, when you said before that, De Jong shouldn't really be playing defensive midfield. But there's no option, right? If there's not De Jong, it's Pedri. Otherwise, you get into Cancelo, or you said Eric Garcia. I think Fermin Lopez, again, more perhaps of an attacking midfielder type.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Even when he plays centrally, right? So, given the amount of competitions that they're in, I think it's really going to be a challenge for Hansi Flick. And bear in mind too that the style of football that Hansi Flick wants to play, I think the directness, the intensity, that's also more physically taxing on the players. It takes a lot out of them. So I don't think it's going to be tough for Hansi Flick. But what's encouraging is I think he's handled himself very well with the media so far. The players seem to be on board with it. The players seem to be committed. And look, ultimately, and I say this in the nicest possible way, it's LaLiga. It would really have to be a disaster for you to finish outside the top four. Nobody believes it's going to, or even really to finish
No,
outside the top
definitely
three.
not.
Nobody believes it's going to happen, right?
No, definitely not. I mean, just to finish on the number 6 position, etc. I think Casado, who was on the bench against Rayo, will start at home against Valladolid at the weekend, and then after that you've got the international break, and then you can reassess what you can do, see where the injured players are, how far they are to coming back. And if you really feel right now that you're too light, then you've got still a couple of days to go and try to get someone on loan, But yeah, you're right. They will finish top 4. It's just a question of how far can they push Real Madrid, of course, and their competition with Atletico, I guess. But what we've seen so far, I think is really encouraging even from Flick, to come to a different country after the last few years who haven't been great for him, between the sacking for Germany, then waiting for another club, then taking charge of this Barca team with all the issues that you've just mentioned, which can't be easy, but he feels really positive. I think he's always been a positive guy anyway, but he feels like really positive. And they've got that momentum. They got the momentum in preseason. Remember that Clasico win? I know it's only a friendly match, but it's still a Clasico. And the fact that they played well with some youngsters, Pau, Victor, all of that, blah, blah, Casado, Bernal, as we said. And then to have Dani Olmo, almost like he had to wait and could only play him in the third game. But like this is such a bonus to have him now.
Yeah.
He's maybe not fully match fit, so he might not start at the weekend, but just come on again to get a bit more minutes. But from what we saw in half an hour against Rayo was really, really good.
I mean, look, I made the point. This is also on paper not the easiest start to the season. Okay, Valencia have been terrible, but Valencia away, not a great place to start.
And they went behind.
And they had to come up from behind, as you said. I don't think they've necessarily put together a 90-minute performance, but in the periods when they've been good and they've been clicking, they've been super dominant, and I think that's encouraging. I think I made the point at the weekend against Sevilla. Fermin Lopez was the second most experienced outfield player on the Barcelona bench, and he's made 14 league starts in his career. And the most experience was Eric Garcia, who you'd probably tell me shouldn't count. So it's really uphill, but they're coping with it. They're dealing with it. I wonder, when you wonder sort of what moves they can make. I mean, the window closes as we record this, in less than 36 hours. I'm wondering if maybe you get on the phone with Uncle George and you say, hey, look, can we find a home for Ansu and maybe free up some funds to, even if it's a loan, maybe free up some funds to bring in another option in the middle of the park. I think that might be something that certainly I would try to work on if I were Barcelona, just simply because, leaving aside all the ups and downs with Ansu Fati and the fact that he makes a lot of money, I of all the sort of the winger types that Barcelona have, he's probably the one that least fits. I don't know if you agree with this. Least fits what Flick wants to do. So maybe there's some wiggle room there to generate some extra funds. But yeah, they got to move quickly. And I say, and it's a shame given how exciting the youngsters have been and how quickly the players who are there have said, right, we're going to get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I've been really happy with, and Lewandowski's goal was disallowed for that Koundé foul at the start of the move. It's a shame. It's the right call. It's a bit of a shame, but his finish was still really sharp and really good. And last season we spoke about Lewandowski and maybe feeling the fact that at 35, going on 36, it was getting towards the end, and maybe considering how big his wages were, that Barca could let him go and free some money that way, and that he could go somewhere else, either back to Poland, maybe to MLS. I don't know, anywhere he wanted. He stayed. He really wanted to stay. He's a massive asset for this club in terms of how much they're paying him. But I have to say, in the 3 games so far, he's looked much better than I expected him to. And I guess Dani Olmo coming into the team will bring even more to Lewandowski in terms of having that support around him, creating chances for him, creating space for him. All of that, I think, would benefit Lewandowski massively. So that's also, I think, one of the good news for Barcelona at the start of the season, because Flick, how would he adapt? Great so far. 3 wins in 3. The youngsters, okay, Bernal is a shame, but they've done really well. Even the Jules Koundé has been outstanding. Maybe Barca's best player so far this season. Lamine, great. Dani Olmo coming in, great. Even Rafinha has looked sharp despite the Copa America. And a lot of those players, by the way, were busy this summer. But for Lewandowski to have hit the ground running straight away, to look really, really good, really sharp, with the ball, without the ball, maybe the arrival of Flick and somebody who speaks the same language as him, as in like kind of helped massively, and someone that he knows so well, with whom he won a lot before. Maybe that was just what he needed as well to kind of not resurrect, because he was not over last season, but last season was not a good season overall for somebody like him. That's what he needed to be even better this year.
Yeah, look, last point, I agree with you. Last point I want to make about this, and I hate going back to Laporte and its levers, but if Gundogan were still there, I think they could even think potentially of challenging, right? If everybody stays fit, whatever. And yet they had to sacrifice Gundogan to bring in Dani Olmo. I mean, I think this is when we talked about before, and I'll have a column coming up on this about the financial restrictions and so on. Not just at Barcelona, it's extreme, but I think it's around football as a whole. And it's part of the reason why, you can't just sell Ansu Fati from one day to the next. Why Lewandowski leaving, unless he was willing to take a massive pay cut and cancel his contract, was just never going to happen. It's because right now, we're going through this big correction in the world of football. And at Barcelona, it became so extreme that you literally had to give away a guy who was one of your best players last season in Ilkay Gundogan for nothing, just so you could register another player, which just think about how absurd this situation is. All right, enough Barca. How about some quick hits?
Let's go, Gab.
Champions League draw is held in a few hours, just a goal kick away from me in Monaco in that direction. Jules, it's a new format. And if I remember correctly, you like this format.
I do. I just think after 30 odd years of the group stage format and everything, it was time to change. I like a change. I'm not saying that this is much better and that we will have more fun and it's better for the players, for the clubs, etc., for UEFA, etc., or the viewer, the fans, the viewers, the TV viewers, whatever. I just think it was good to do something different and try something different. Let's see if that Swiss format with basically one big league of 36 teams with the 12 at the bottom who don't go through, then a playoff for the last 32 if you want, the round of 32, and then the top 8 are already qualified for the last 16, and then they meet the ones who went through the playoff to go to the last 16. I think this is good. You play 8 games. You will have 8 different games, so you don't play home and away against the same team. So that's not repetitive like before. You're going to face 2 teams of the pot 1, 2 of pot 2, etc., which is good. And then, yeah, that's open. Yeah, we will have big clashes straight on, and I think they want one big game every night. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's the first week, and then Tuesday, Wednesdays. And I'm all for it, really. So let's see how it goes.
I think the big question, Jules, is going to be how much do teams value the seedings? Because obviously, once you get to the knockout stage, you'll be seeded all the way through, as happens in tennis. Are teams really going to value being a 3 seed instead of a 6 seed? Or once they've qualified, are we going to see some dead rubbers at the end? That, to me, is the big question, really the only question.
And Gab, one of the differences with this new Champions League format is that being a top seed in the group stage is no longer that big of an advantage.
No, it's not really an advantage at all, other than the fact that you're a top seed, so you're presumably better than the bottom seed. Whoever seeded number 1, I presume Real Madrid, they're going to play, like you said, 2 teams from the top pot, 2 teams from the second tier, 2 teams from the third tier, 2 teams from the fourth tier, exactly like the team that's number 36, whoever that is.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it wipes away that advantage. It wipes away the incentive to rig the draw, frankly, as well. It was funny. One of the questions yesterday was about, because it's going to be done by computer electronically, are you worried about Russian hackers and stuff like that? And the reality is, he said, well, they're going to take the safeguards and whatever, but I don't even think they're connected to the internet. So no, I wouldn't worry about that.
No more balls anymore. Yeah.
No, the only time you're going to see bowls is for the order of the groups to be announced. But that's it. Manchester United have finally completed the signing of Manuel Ugarte. Jules, you need to be the hype man here for United fans and for Ugarte. This is exciting,
and
right?
I will be. And I happily will be, Gabi, because okay, it just didn't work out for him in Paris. He had some good moments and some good games in the way he chases the ball, hassles the opponent on the ball, recovers the ball. He's a really hardworking, smart player to break down an attack from the opposition, for example. It's great. The only thing is Luis Enrique kind of wished that he was better on the ball than what he was. And the problem is Luis Enrique needs a number 6 that is really good on the ball. So Vitinha took Ugarte's place for that reason, mostly. That doesn't mean Ugarte is not a good player. That doesn't mean he can't bring a lot to United, because I think he will. It's him, Casemiro, and Kobe Mainu for 2 places, really. But if you want an enforcer, if you want that guy who's going to protect your back four really well, this is Manuel Ugarte. He's a Uruguayan international. He's played in the Champions League. He's got good European experience now. And I think he would have learned a lot from that season in Paris. For me, it's a really good signing. PSG wanted to get their money back, and they did, because they bought him for 60 and they've just sold him a year on for 50 plus 10. So they're happy. United first offer 35. PSG were like laughing, saying that this is not enough. So I think in the end, everybody is quite happy with this deal.
Yeah, and it takes pressure off of replacing Casemiro, which could happen sooner rather than later.
And meanwhile, Gab, staying with United, Scott McTominay is on his way to Napoli. You know how I feel about his ability, not my cup of tea. I guess Conte sees things differently.
Yeah, I am shocked that you and Antonio Conte, who are so similar in so many ways, should evaluate McTominay differently. Yeah, I don't get this, and I don't understand where he's going to fit in the lineup. Whether he's an impact sub. I mean, he's not going to replace Zambo Anguissa, I would assume, and certainly not Lobotka or Billy Gilmore, who's the other guy they want, whoever is in the playmaking position. But he likes players who move the ball quickly. He thinks McTominay does that. Certainly the physicality. I think certainly will present matchup problems for opponents. I am very curious to see how this one works out. We're not done, Jules. We got more quick hits.
Yes.
What is done, Jules, is Mika Merino to Arsenal on Monday. Rob and I disagreed somewhat about how Arteta will use him. I saw him as more in a playmaking role. He sees Declan Rice sitting in front of the back four, perhaps, and Merino more on the left-hand side. What's your prediction? Who's right?
I think he's going to play as a number 8 on the left-hand side with Odegaard on the right and Rice behind him. That's the idea. That's why they signed him. He can do different things, as you're right. And I think that versatility to play higher up on the pitch, maybe more as a playmaker, to play even on Odegaard's side or even deeper, was also part of the appeal. But for 32 million euros, a player of his caliber, attitude, the work ethic, obviously winning the Euros with Spain can't do any harm in the summer. Champions League experience with Real Sociedad, not much, but still enough there to for him not to be discovering it with Arsenal. I think he's a really smart signing. And he famously had some photos when he was a kid with Arsenal shirt on that they obviously kind of reproduced now that he's older, now he's signed for the club, to say that he was always a fan. I don't know if he was always a fan, but I like the fact that he was super keen to come to England, to come to Arsenal. And I think he's going to add value and talent to this team, which in that position kind of needed somebody since Xhaka left the club. So it makes a lot of sense, this signing, from everywhere you look at it.
And he's played in England before as well, which I think
of course,
also
he
helps.
speaks very good English too. So Federico Chiesa, John Liverpool, not for much money, Gab.
No, like we told you, this is a typical situation of a guy on a very big salary, at least for where the club were at the time, who's got a year left on his deal. The fee should come in around, I think, 13 million euros. Again, not a lot of money. A lot will depend on whether this is a good deal or not. I think it's going to depend partly on how big a contract. We know, I think it's 4 years that he signed for. Not much clarity on the fee. We'll try to find out. On the wages. My guess is he will have taken a pay cut from what he made at Juve, which was around 200 grand a week. So the question is, for it to be a good deal, is how big a pay cut, what are the bonuses, and so on. Because ultimately, at least initially, he's coming in to be Mohamed Salah's backup. He is versatile. I wonder about the numbers with Liverpool, because they obviously have so many forwards, Nunez and Gakpo and Jota and Luis Diaz, Harvey Elliott can be up there too, Salah, Chiesa. I wonder if they're thinking one last move and maybe shift one of those guys and maybe get some help in midfield where Zubimendi never showed up. But then I'm thinking that probably won't happen because they let Stefan Bajcetic, or so I thought maybe the clue that it might happen is they let Stefan Bajcetic go, who I'm a big fan of, and I thought could have been part of that rotation. We'll see. There's not much time left if they do pull it off. But this is pure speculation on my part. Meanwhile, Raheem Sterling is still at Chelsea along with his pal Ben Chilwell. Jadon Sancho still at United. From an purely accounting, bean counter amortization perspective, this one is a no-brainer. Do one of those mega swaps where then you tell media, no, these are separate deals and so on. But it doesn't really make sense from a football perspective, does it?
From a football perspective, I mean, certainly the Sterling Sancho deal swap, I really don't get it. I don't see it. For Chilwell, I guess United, while Luke Shaw is injured, you could do with a left-footed fullback if you want, instead of having Mazraoui playing at left back or Joe Godallo playing at left back. At least you've got a proper left back in there. But then when Luke Shaw is going to come back, Luke Shaw is better than Ben Chilwell. So then you get Chilwell as a backup. Yeah, maybe. But the Sancho Sterling swap would not make sense outside of, as you said, financial reason, which is fair enough. Everybody does it. So they would be stupid not to do it. But if you were Sterling going from Chelsea to United right now, I'm not sure this helps you. And I'm not sure you would play more at United than you would have at Chelsea. So if this one happens, from a player's point of view, I don't really get it, to be fair. Certainly from a Sterling point of view.
I'm assuming from Sterling's view, and I mean, I don't think this is going to happen either, but if it does happen, he may need to take a pay cut. But I think you look at United's wingers and you would say, okay, on the right-hand side, if I want to play on the right, I fancy my chances. I've got, Amad Diallo, Anthony. I got a shot there, and okay, Garnacho on the other side, and there's Garnacho and Rashford on the other side, whatever. But I think maybe Sterling, the Sancho to Chelsea just doesn't fit their model at all and would make no sense. Which is probably why they might do it. No, just kidding.
More Chelsea, they continue to be linked with Victor Osimhen, who has also offers from Al Ahly and in Saudi Arabia. Sorry, they're also linked with Ivan Toney, who also have, guess what? Some offers from Al Ahly and Saudi Arabia. Napoli and Brentford both need to sell. Can they just find an agreement somewhere, Gabby? If that's where the players want to go, they can go?
Yeah, so Chelsea says, like, oh, we'll take Toney, Al Ahly, you go and take Osimhen. No, I don't think it's going to work. Like, his agent, Carlo Calenda, has been talking incessantly with Chelsea. I think the issue, again, Chelsea, who are you? Are you done with the big wages? Osimhen is a phenomenal player. Like, he's better than Nico Jackson. And I say, I think Nico Jackson has been good. But are you going to want to take on really, really big wages? Again, we're talking in excess of 200 grand a week. That's what he would want to have. He says he wants to stay in Europe. I think it's a tricky one. If there's somebody else who needs a center forward, I think they should step forward now because Osimhen would strongly consider you. Ivan Toney, he's painted himself in a corner. I feel a little bit, tiny bit sorry for him, and frankly for Brentford. I think Brentford could use the money. Apparently the fee's now gone down to 35 million. Some were reporting. People were talking 80 million. You remember last January when Arsenal were linked to him. But again, it's a reflection of where the market is right now. Atletico Madrid were held to a 0-0 draw at home by Espanyol. Jules, I thought they were good in the first half. Simeone obviously thought differently because he took off Julian Alvarez at the break.
Yeah, he did. I don't know if that was a consequence of El Cholo not being happy with the first half, because I thought you're right. They played really well in the first half. And I thought Alvarez didn't do badly either. I thought overall they were quite good. They had 25 shots, 5 big chances. I mean, Juan Garcia made 7 saves or 8 saves, I think, in the Espanyol goal. And it was just one of those nights where they could have probably played for hours and never scored. It was just like that. And now that Morata has left, I know Alvarez has come, different profiles, different forwards. That efficiency would have to come. The clinicality, no, it doesn't have to be clinical because they had enough shot and enough chances to score just one and win this game. They need to find those goals from somewhere else, and they just could not in that game. Maybe Alvarez was just a question of managing the minutes. He hasn't come back. He hasn't arrived that long ago at the club. He's probably still trying to get fully fit or fully match fit after a busy summer. So this is maybe the reason, but I don't think it was. Yeah, it's 2 points dropped, of course. But overall, I didn't think it was a bad performance from Atleti all around. So no reasons really to be too worried, I think.
And I would worry about the only living shore loss in captivity either.
The Times report that UEFA won't allow the sale of club assets to a related party in its financial sustainability calculation. Gab, this is not good news for Chelsea. And what does that mean exactly?
No, this is really not good news. So what it means is Chelsea. Well, first of all, Chelsea says, "Oh no, don't worry, we're going to be compliant." So in last year's accounts, obviously, they reflected the sale of the hotels to Blueco, which is their holding company. The Premier League has yet to approve whether they allow that, whether they're going to allow that sale to count towards the club accounts. They obviously also later on June 28th, they also sold their women's team to Blueco. So we'll see if that gets included. But if UEFA are saying we're not even going to consider this stuff, then you have a hole there of about what, £78 million plus whatever the women's team, plus the fact that they were in a hole anyway in this transfer window. Like I said, unless Todd Bowley's got a magic box somewhere, I think it's going to be really, really tough. Eddie Nketiah is on his way to Crystal Palace for 25 million, rising to 30 million. Jules, does this mean that Arsenal's reserve center forwards are Gabriel Jesus and Gabriel Martinelli? When Martinelli's not doing his day job of playing down out in the wing?
No, I mean, you can play Trossard as well as a number
Oh, sorry,
nine.
another winger, yeah.
Yeah, but as a different option, I guess. But yeah, I think the Nketiah transfer pays for the Merino's arrival, basically. This is what it is. They would not have been able to get Merino without letting someone go, unfortunately. And for Nketiah, I think this is a player who went through the academy. And as we know, in terms of PSR, it's straight in your books, straight in your accounts. This is good. There might be more leaving as well before the end of the season, the end of the transfer window, sorry. And then I think that would be a good window from an Arsenal point of view. So unfortunately, Nketiah has to go. And then for Crystal Palace is another option for Glasner with Mateta and with Otton Edouard. Juventus beat Verona 3-0 away on Monday night.
Jules, let me finish here because I'm going to disagree with you on Nketiah. Sorry, I know you're trying to shut me up.
No, sorry, I didn't hear you talking.
Just kidding. I'm not convinced here just for one simple reason. And, like you, I'm not a big Eddie Nketiah guy. But he played a lot last season. I think he started 10 league games, just going from memory, made a lot of appearances. He ate up a lot of minutes, often, in the second part of the season, coming off the bench. I do wonder, you've covered all your bases. You have covered most positions. I do wonder if they maybe needed to do another move or maybe are still plotting some move, even some sort of low-cost move, for the simple reason that Gabriel Jesus at center forward, I don't think satisfies anybody. And he has a lot of injuries. If you could move Trossard there, but then Trossard's your backup in several other positions, you don't want to have a situation where a couple injuries to key men really derail your season. And it happened at the back a few years ago when Saliba got injured. That is my big concern. So I'm wondering if he might not have something up his sleeve in the final hours of the transfer window. Alone, something like that. I don't know. Just speculating. Not Osimhen, somebody else.
Juventus beat Verona 3-0 away on Monday night, Gab, for the second straight game. They got a goal from a debutant.
Yes, it was Bangula, who comes from their next-gen team, so their B-side, essentially, in week one. And then it was this guy, Savona, on Monday night. People who, unless you follow the third division, you wouldn't be familiar with. I thought they played really well. Vlahovic looks well up for it. Scored a great goal. They couldn't have imagined a better start to the season, I think, and it really builds the confidence in Thiago Motta. Sticking with Juve, the Teun Coat Miners deal is finally done. They have new wingers in Nico Gonzalez and Francisco Conceição. The youngsters are looking great. Kenan Yildiz has been playing well too, and he's been starting. Jules, does Thiago Motta shock therapy, like I said, working very nicely? How good can they actually be this season?
No, I think they could be really good. I think they will challenge Inter. How far, I'm not so sure, but they certainly look like already the two best teams in the country. Juve top of the table, of course, perfect start. like you said, I think we maybe didn't expect them to be so good in the transfer window, which they financed by letting go some of their young talent, next gen talent. But to have Douglas Luiz signing, Coop Miners signing, as you said, Francisco Conceição for 20 million euros. I think this is a great signing. Nico Gonzalez too. That's the wingers that Mota wanted. It's really good on 1v1. There's a bit of everything everywhere there. Even defensively, it's good. When they lost Chesney and Rabiot, who one left as a free agent, the other one got his contract. I don't know how you say
Rescinded.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but they covered them quite well. Really smart recruitment, I think. And Thiago Motta already looks where he belongs, kind of thing, on the bench like that. So I'm really excited to see how far Juve go this season and how well he gets them to play.
And we haven't even mentioned the midfield. I mean, brand new Thuram, Kefren Thuram,
and
Douglas Luiz, and the alternatives there are Locatelli and Fagioli, who are still Italian internationals. That's not a bad place to be.
That's a really good squad. Jose Cancelo has joined Al Hilal for around $28 million. Gab, you're a big fan. Are you sad to see him go?
Well, I'll still be watching him. I watch Al Hilal very, very closely. Again, it seems to me a victim of football, of modern times. I just find it kind of depressing. I think he can help many teams, but he has a big contract. Obviously, Pep Guardiola hasn't made many mistakes in his time at Manchester City.
Yeah,
I think giving Cancelo a new deal when he had no plan to use him ever again, and then misjudging that so badly, that's going to be one of them, along with Cole Palmer, obviously. And Calvin Phillips, of course.
Yeah.
But there aren't too many. He's gotten most things right. Look, he made a deal to get money. I think it's a great deal for Manchester City, because I don't think anybody else was going to give you that kind of money for Cancelo at this stage. He's been burned in Europe at this stage, and so he moves on. I still think he's a unique talent in his role, and I think he could have helped many teams.
Yeah, and that's Joao Cancelo, not his brother Jose. I don't know why I called him Jose in the question, but yeah, that's
probably
Joao,
because because when I wrote the script, it autocorrected to Jose. So it's not your fault, Jules. Kingsley Coman wants to leave Bayern. Jules, why is he leaving it so late? What are his plans?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's really strange why he left it so late. I'm not really sure why. I think Bayern have always said, listen, if you want to go, you're welcome. Huge wages. Olise arriving, Musiala is there, Gnabry is there. I think they were quite keen on letting him go. And I think maybe it took him time to make his mind up, really, between staying and going. The thing is, like you said, now it's really late. And the only club right now that he has is in Saudi Arabia. So yesterday there were few conflicting reports. I was told that he didn't want to go. Others reported that he accepted the deal to go to Al Ittihad, I think it is. I'm not sure, but I'd be disappointed to see him go over there. I think there's enough talent there for a European club to go and get him. That might mean for him taking less money and decrease his wages, but he can do that. He's already a very, very rich man. So I'm really curious to see what's next for him. I'd be disappointed if that was Saudi Arabia.
I'll tell you what on Coman. I mean, obviously the market in Saudi is open longer, so he doesn't need to be in a rush. But why doesn't he come to Arsenal on loan? And he can back up Kai Havertz and give you a different dimension. He can play center forward. He's done it before, right?
I don't remember him playing center forward.
Oh, he did it at Juve. It's not
really.
It's not that different. Yes, he's done it. Not particularly well, but
I prefer Gabriel Jesus as a 9 than Kingsley Coman as a 9.
All right. Okay. All right. But
I think there's a few clubs who could do with somebody like him. It's just, it's a bit late now to try to make that whatever move happen, really. After 2 disappointing games, Milan are scrambling at the end of the transfer window. There's talk of Salemakas plus cash for Tammy Abraham at Roma, and they're looking at another midfielder, Rabiot, maybe Manu Kone. I thought Milan was supposed to be big methodical planners on the transfer market, Gab. What's happening?
Yeah, this is weird, right? Because they're the smartest guys in the room, and they plan, and the youngsters, and the analytics, and Moncada. I think this is pretty uncharacteristic to have this
Yeah,
knee jerk. I think it shows you that some of the decision makers at the club have changed. Zlatan. I'm not saying this. Oh, it's because of Zlatan, but Zlatan's obviously much more involved. He's going to be part of whether Milan season is judged a success. Okay, so Jovic didn't play well when he's
yeah.
been on the pitch. So like, oh look, Tammy Abraham. Sure, but you knew Jovic wasn't very good. You saw him all of last season, right? I mean, the Salamakers Tammy Abraham deal, I think, is the kind of deal that could help both clubs. Fine, but you could have made this deal at the start of the summer, right? And again, in midfield, it's not a mystery. Rabia was maybe you wait on him because you try to get the best possible deal. Manu Kone feels a little agent driven to me, frankly, because
Yeah.
when you have a guy from abroad who gets linked to a different Italian club, this happens all the time. A different Italian club every week, you know that there's somebody in Italy who has the mandate to sell him. But we had Manu Kone in our draft of young players a couple years
Yeah,
ago.
remember?
Lost his name away a little bit, but there's talent in there. I just
Definitely.
hope these aren't knee jerk reactions. I think Milan's done well being methodical with their planning, and obviously some of their signings this summer, like Fofana and Pavlovic, reflect this. This one a little bit less so. Jules, we have our final Champions League participant after the playoffs. I'm just going to run through them. I know you love the Champions League playoffs.
I do, I do.
We have Young Boys Bern, Dinamo Zagreb, Slovan Bratislava, Red Star Belgrade, Sparta Prague, Lille, and Salzburg. Who we want to talk about? Who we want to name check here?
Well, I mean, Lille to start with, great for them to qualify to be there. It's very rare for French club to go through the qualifiers and make it. They've made it, so it's four French clubs now for the first time ever in the Champions League. So well done to them. Young Boys, I don't think many would have given them a chance against Galatasaray with the second leg in Turkey, but they did it, and not just they beat them at home, but they also went away and beat them, which led to Muslera
I,
getting sent off for something
I
so
had
stupid.
dinner with the Young Boys CO last night and other people
Nice.
as well. So
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
name check,
And
just name dropping famous people.
Alan Virginius with the winning goal yesterday, a prodigy of French football when he was young, struggling a bit now to confirm it, but that was really good. So well done to them. Pep Linders and Salzburg. I mean, I know we're used to seeing them in the Champions League, but well done to him and his young team to qualify. So it's good. You've got the usual boys like Red Star Belgrade, for example, and you've got our Dinamo Zagreb who are regularly there. But it's good for Lille. It's good for Sparta Prague as well to have made it. And so well done to everyone. They will be
And
in the draw with you today.
okay, you have a name check Slovan Bratislava. I will. I don't. From memory, are they the first Slovak team in the Champions League?
No, surely not. No,
They've
no,
been
no.
here
You
before, but
had,
whatever.
yeah, no, you had others before. But what's funny about Slovan Bratislava, not so funny, but obviously their captain is Vladimir Weiss, their coach is Vladimir Weiss, and obviously their former player, coach, star, president is also Vladimir Weiss because all three generations of Weisses are called Vladimir. So well done to the Weiss family.
That is fantastic. That would be former Portsmouth star
Yeah.
Vladimir Weiss.
The Guardian report that the PGMOL is low on funds, no more money left. And we'll ask for more money. Gab, are they spending too much on VAR?
No, look, the Premier League asked them to VAR and then the different things. They take training. I think their budget is around $33 million a year, and when you consider that, they don't just provide referees to the Premier League. They do it for the Football League as well. They get funding from the FA too. We all complain about referees. They're professionals. They need to be properly compensated. They need to be properly trained. Rules change, technology changes. This does not sound like a lot of money. And yeah, you need to pay what's fair. Now, it's not quite a free market situation because I don't know if there's like a PGMOL competitor with referees. So the Premier League can really argue. The Premier League has to, I think, pay the PGMOL what the PGMOL wants. And if they need more money, as long as you can account for it and say we're going to use it, in this, and this way, and not just, buy Howard Webb a new boat, then I think it's money well spent. Nordi Mukiele is back in the Bundesliga, joining Bayer Leverkusen from PSG on loan. Jules Xabi Alonso has a ton of depth this year. Is he going to make it count?
Yeah, it does. Every position, everywhere, really. They've recruited well. Some young players, some a bit more experienced. For Mukiele is going back to the Bundesliga that he knows really well. There's no option to buy. That doesn't mean that if he works out well, they're not going to like try to sign him on a permanent deal later at the end of the season. So I think this one works again for everybody. His wages off the books for PSG. He's going to get to play. He's happy to go back to Bundesliga for a top club as well. So well done, everyone involved in this one. Jeff Carlisle is reporting that Nottingham Forest want to sell Matt Turner rather than sending him out on loan. Gab, with hours left in the window, this is not good news for the US #1 goalkeeper.
No, but look, as far as Forest wanting to sell him, I want to be able to bench press 400 pounds. I can't do it. I think it would just be stupid if they keep Turner as their number 3. It doesn't help Turner. It doesn't help Forest. I think a loan deal where he can actually play. And I think if you're Matt Turner, you need to have a conversation with Pochettino now that he's in charge. But I'm sure Pochettino is telling him, Matt, just play. Whatever level you need to be at, just play. So any loan deal that you can put together, in Forest's case, there's a bit of shop window effect. Obviously, the window's open in Saudi Arabia, but I don't think he's going there. And MLS, it's open longer. So maybe he could come back to an MLS club. But is that good for Matt Turner? Is that what Pochettino thinks is good for Matt Turner? I don't know. There's a lot of decisions there to be made. But I think, if you're Forest, you should strongly consider a loan move if it's the right loan move.
I agree.
Sticking with the US, Tanner Testament has joined Leon from Venezia for around 7 million euros. Jules, I'm a bit confused. You weren't here on Monday, which was a shame, but there was a report in the Keep where they said that Leon had to sell a bunch of players to raise 70 million euros or something like that to avoid getting in trouble with the DNCG, the dreaded financial regulator. But instead they go and they spend more money. Was that like a report in the Keep wrong, or
no,
is there a 200 million offer from Saudi Arabia for Lacazette that only John Textor knows about?
No, it's not just that, Gab. It's that they had budgeted to sell well this summer. And when they went to see the DNCG in June, like every other professional club in France, in their kind of provision, if you want, for the summer, they had planned for big sales. So Cherki, maybe Cacré, maybe Tolisso, those kind of guys, to go up to between 70 and 100 million euros. The fact is, they have struggled to sell massively. So they were always going to be allowed to buy, but they had to sell massively to balance the books, which they haven't done. So now they won't be in trouble right now, and they still can spend 7 million, by the way, not in one installment, in few installments on Testament. It's more that if they can't sell well, then John Textor, our dear friend, JT, will have to put, I guess, some money from his own pocket in it to make sure that the NCG don't go mad and don't prevent them from maybe recruiting in January or giving them a fine or deducting them points or something like that. So we will have to see. There's different things they can do to cover the money that they didn't make in sales in the summer, for example.
Maybe spending 35 million on Ugarte was not a good idea with hindsight.
Not. And more Textor, Gab, the gift that keeps on giving. He's very angry about a report in Brazil. As you know, he owned Botafogo as well in Brazil. That report he considers libelous, and he wrote a long post on his website, on his own website.
And his website, of course, is johntextor.com, which is an absolute hoot. In terms of website design, it looks like something, let's just put it this way. It's very retro, very vintage. Go check it out, johntextor.com. So basically, the gist of his thing is he's threatening to sue everybody. So I'm going to be very careful what I say. But essentially, a guy named Luca de Castro, who's an investigative journalist in Brazil, wrote what Textor considers a hit piece. Now, Textor's caused controversy because he's highlighted what he considers to be corruption. He cited betting patterns and stuff as evidence among referees. He's taken his case. The case was partly dismissed. He says De Castro has a whole bunch of inaccuracies in his reporting, and that's why he's going to sue him, and he's going to sue anybody who repeats the things that De Castro says about him. He says that De Castro just didn't reach out to him. He says that De Castro kind of just relied on crappy Google searches instead of reading actual documents and court filings and blah blah blah. Two things strike me here, okay, about this. And again, JT, please take this in the right spirit. First of all, what I really didn't like is he keeps referring to this guy De Castro, who, again, as I understand it, is a respected investigative journalist in Brazil. Doesn't mean he didn't get things wrong. I suppose courts will decide that. He keeps pointing out that the guy's a Flamengo fan. I absolutely hate that. This is something idiots on Twitter do, right? They say, "Oh, Jules, like you hate Ten Hag because you're a City fan," or whatever nonsense, right? This guy's doing his job, right? He's not doing it because you bought Botafogo, and if you bought Flamengo, he would say, "Ooh, John Textor is lovely and smells great." It's just so childish. Go after the things that he wrote that you say are wrong and potentially defamatory, and leave it at that. You don't need to make it personal in this way. The other thing that strikes me, other than the fact that in his very long post, it's funny because at the beginning he calls him by his real name, De Castro, and then later on it autocorrects to Mr. Castor, like as in castor oil, or I believe that's the word for beaver in French,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Castor, yeah.
Just thought was hilarious. I'm like, you have time to go and write this very long thing. Presumably nobody has edited. I don't even know if your lawyers looked at it, and you just post it on your website. I am so fascinated with this guy. I wish you would come on and talk to us. I discovered that he lives around the corner from me in West London, or at least has a property there. I read a piece in The Athletic about him where, he's really into his sneakers, and he was wearing two sneakers that one was a dark shade of blue, the other one was a light shade of blue, and there's some complicated story about why they were different sneakers. I don't know. I just don't understand it. Curious to see what happens with Palace and with Everton and with the DNCG. I think one of the more colorful gentlemen that we cover. But JT, look, whenever you want, Jules and I are here for you. We'll take you out to lunch first if you want. Aaron Ramsdale is on his way to Southampton for 25 million. Jules, with Karl Hein, now the Valladolid keeper. Karl Hein, who, by the way, I think is actually, I'd heard a lot of people told me he was good. Mark Ogden says, he's got to be rubbish, get rid. No, he's showing he's actually pretty good. So 20-odd caps for Estonia. Let's not make fun of him. But I wonder, who is David Raya's backup now? Is it 18-year-old Tommy Setford? Is it 18-year-old Alexi Rojas? Is there somebody else who I've forgotten?
No, you haven't forgotten anybody. It's interesting. I don't know. We will see if they ever need another goalkeeper, the number 2, play in the League Cup or the FA Cup or whatever.
Could Chesney come back? He's a free agent.
Chesney is retired now, so we won't see him again on the football pitch.
You sure?
Unless it's for charity. But no, I guess Tedford, who come from Ajax in the summer, I would think...
Sorry, Jules. He didn't come from Ajax. He came from young Ajax, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, he was not the Ajax goalkeeper. Just wanted to be clear on this.
No. Yeah. But his club was Ajax, so he came from Ajax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, these are very inexperienced backups to have. And I was just struck by this. And I'm wondering if they're planning a last-minute move, because Arteta talked so much about the ball-playing goalkeeper, how important it is, yada, yada, yada. Presumably, we think this is why Ramsdale's gone. And you've got 218. Maybe they're both really good on the ball. I don't know. I've never seen these guys play. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the goalkeeper is going to come. So they will have to do with the two that they have as backup. And then I guess we'll see. Sandro Tonali made his return for Newcastle in the League Cup on Wednesday night as they beat Nottingham Forest on penalties. Gab, he looked sharp and motivated.
Of course he did. It's just, he's been raring to go. He's been, he was suspended for what, like 10 months, 9 months, however long it was. Of course he's going to be sharp and motivated. He's had a lot of time to think about what he did. Of course, he was banned for his online gambling. And I think he's embarrassed by it. It cost him his place in the national team, cost him a season in Newcastle. I think the way Newcastle stood by him and the way the Newcastle fans stood by him, I think that made a really, really big deal to him, and it's pushing him forward. And, hopefully he can have a good season and get his career back on track. Kevin Danso joins Roma from Lens for a 25 million reported fee. Do you like this deal, Jules?
I really like Danso. I have to say, he's been excellent while he was in France for Lens. Austrian international, we saw him at the Euros. really, really good guy, really strong defender, very physical on marking, if you want, on the player. With the ball, yeah, he's not the best or the most elegant,
Yeah.
but that's not what you get him anyway. So I like that. I think Roma needed a centre back, clearly, considering who they let go in the summer and who they still have right now in their squad. So I think this one, maybe 25 is a little bit expensive, but Lens are selling really well again this summer.
I just wonder if maybe, he isn't a little bit too similar in profile to Mancini, who they already have in terms of the big physical, not
Yeah.
exactly ball playing defender. And it looks like Chris Smalling on the market now.
Yeah. FIFA has started the process to sell the rights of the Club World Cup, Gab. They talked exclusively to Apple before, but now they were only offering $1 billion, while FIFA thinks they're worth $4 billion.
Yeah, and they're going to sell the rights instead of selling the global rights, they're going to go individually from 1 billion to 4 billion. I believe that's a big gap. I believe that's 4 times as much, in fact. They've kind of promised this money to the clubs and to their own stakeholders, so they have to get this right. I don't imagine they'll get the 4 billion, but they need to come close. There's been so much negativity around this Club World Cup, people complaining about, too many games. Is there going to be real interest? The fact that it's in the US, they're like, oh, is it going to be like those meaningless friendlies? They're not really getting off on the right foot. I believe I'm right in thinking that, even though it's 10 months away, I'm not sure we have the venues or any semblance of a calendar or
Yeah,
draw
not
or
yet,
any kind of
no.
plan yet. And it's really important to sell this commercially locally. I think they're going to have to do this in double quick time. And I wonder if they don't get anywhere near that 4 billion, are they going to think of saying, all right, let's reset and let's see if we can fit this in the calendar later, maybe another year, maybe 27, if they can. I don't know. Even though this time's been set aside. Nacional's Juan Izquierdo has tragically passed away, Jules. You'll recall he collapsed with an irregular heartbeat on August 22nd when Nacional faced Sao Paulo in the Copa Libertadores at Morumbi.
Yeah, really sad news, Gab, again. And it's unfortunately not the first time. And every time we repeat the same thing, that those checks on players, I know they're monitored a lot. They have all the medical staff around them in all those clubs, professional clubs, especially. But to make those checks even more accurate and even more precise, if you want, or in depth, so dramas like this don't happen anymore. You should not be.
I mean,
You should not die on a football pitch playing football. We had Nabil Bentaleb, the former Spurs player, who's now at Lille, who had a big alert during preseason. Thankfully for him, it was managed. He can't play right now, and they're monitoring his heart and everything. But the same could have happened to him. And unfortunately, as we said, this is not the first time. So really, 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 I hope that maybe clubs or federations, players, unions, I don't know, anything, step up maybe the effort to make sure that heart condition especially are even better monitored or better checked for players, so we don't have terrible news like this happening.
yeah, look, I mean, you have a medical background, you know this. There's always going to be risk factors. You can't reduce the risk to zero, but you can certainly mitigate the risk. Make sure that you've got defibs, you've got whatever you may need present to make sure that these awful situations happen as rarely as possible.
Yeah. Darwin Nunez has been hit with a five-match ban after his fight with Colombia fans at the Copa America. Remember what happened? He went to the stands. Does that sound right to you, Gab?
Okay, so to make sure that we don't make it seem as if Darwin Nunez is just a raging berserker who likes a fight. He didn't just go into stands because he wanted to fight. He went into the stands because he had family members there who were getting into it and were being insulted or harassed by Colombia supporters who were seated nearby. There wasn't proper segregation, whatever. But all that said, you cannot go in the stands if you're a professional footballer. You simply cannot do that because that is the kind of thing that really leads to a riot where more people get hurt. As a human being, I completely understand. And if I were Darwin Nunez, I might have done the exact same thing if my family was in the stands and I felt that they were in danger. Equally, I also understand why he needs to be punished. And
yeah, for sure.
5 matches, seems about right to me. But he'll miss. I'm guessing he'll miss a bunch of qualifier. It doesn't really matter because everybody qualifies to the next World Cup, and then you move on, and you send a message really that this cannot happen. Rio Mavuba, the star of Rudy Garcia's double-winning Lille side, is back with Bordeaux, Jules, at age 40 and in the 4th division.
No, that's right. I like this story, Gabby. And obviously everything started from Mavuba in Bordeaux, where he started his career, went through the academy, grew up, etc., etc. Then you're right, he went to do bigger things and better things. And now Bordeaux are in trouble, as we've explained many times before. They almost went bankrupt, basically. They lost their professional status. They lost their academy, all their professional players. They went down to the 4th division. And they have to start all over again. And he just wants to help. So he's in charge of the under-15 at the club. He's the coach of the under-15. And he took a subscription, a license, if you want, to be able to play in the 4th division. I don't know. I saw him recently. He still looks in good shape. He still plays charity matches. I don't know if he's good enough for 4th division. I would think so. I would hope so. But I just like the fact him and Paul Bass as well, who's an ambassador for the club, who used to play there, who's also from the area, have decided to help their team at the moment where they needed him the most. So Bruno Irles is the manager. And again, think about this. Rio Mavuba is not going to get paid. Paul Bass is not going to get paid. Bruno Irles is going to pay very little because there's no money left in the club at all. They have to rebuild everything. And I'm glad that they want to be part of that. So good luck to them.
I love this story, much as I love the original Rio Mavuba. Fun fact is that on his birth certificate, it says that he was born at sea. Which, I think will forever making the answer to a trivia question.
And we end on a sad note, unfortunately, Gabby, as Sven Goran Eriksson passed away at the weekend on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously he'd been unwell for a long time, and kind of took his illness in stride. I think the way he took a lot of his career in stride with a lot of positivity, going around visiting his old clubs, visiting lots of people. One of the last things he said, like, how do I want to be remembered? I just want to be remembered as a good person, which can sound incredibly trite. But I think it was very genuine in the way he meant it. Obviously, England's first foreign manager, obviously managed throughout Europe, success at Malmo early on, and then in Portugal, managed to coach both Roma and Lazio in Italy, which is quite a feat. Some people will remember him for other maybe more controversial things throughout his career, some of his escapades, let's say his amorous escapades. But I think he's just somebody who always lived life to his fullest, and somebody who I first met more than 20 years ago. I'll just mention one story is when Gianluca Vialli and I went to see him to talk about the differences between Italian football and English football. It was really funny because every 5 minutes he'd start talking about, he'd change the subject and talk about other stuff. He'd talk about women he'd met or he'd seen, usually attractive women, or he'd talk about the boat he was on in the summer, or he'd talk about holidays or family. He's just somebody who lived life, and it's a sad loss that it comes to an end. But if you're going to go out, I think this is the way to do it, with everybody wishing you well. Jules, this brings us to an end. Thank you for taking a break from your holiday and joining me. But we got to come back on Monday. There's some massive games this weekend. The transfer window closes. Yeah, it's going to be an absolutely packed show. Until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.